If you go to a tournament and you meet a martial artist with no patches, no logo, just in a gi, I always find it interesting because it's like, well, what style do you practice? And I always appreciate the different answers because we're all there at the same place. We're all there to compete. And sometimes I find that, like, when I ask that question, I also learn maybe a martial art I didn't know existed, or a style, perhaps. And I'm like, wait, what does that mean? Or what is that? And so I find it interesting, but really it's just finding, like, if we have anything in common. Just remind me of, and I've listened to some of your shows, what style that you practice.
Okay. Um, when pe when people ask me, I say I do martial arts, and they say, okay, but what kind? And if they make me, I say karate. And then if they really make me, I say it has it's Okinawan philosophy.
Yeah.
I've trained. We have Bill in common.
Mm-hmm.
We actually have rank in common from your form.
Nice.
Um, Grew up in Kyokushin and Isshin-ryu and spent a bunch of time in ITF Taekwondo. I've done bits of Filipino martial arts, Kempo, Judo, BJJ, stand-up jiu-jitsu, smidges of Kobudo, even some sword work, like I punch and kick and swing things at people.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, it's you've got and maybe this is where we start. So maybe we sort of unofficially are starting here, and because I'll pose the question. I believe this is maybe a little bit of peek behind the curtain. I find that the questions people ask of others tells you something about what's important to them,
I
right?
agree
Because
with
you're
that.
interested, right? So you're interested in stylistic differences, maybe because you like the separation, or maybe like me, you appreciate the overlap and the similarity.
Absolutely. I feel like, you know, if you meet, say you go to a tournament and you meet a martial artist with no patches, no logo, just
Mm.
in a gi, I always find it interesting because it's like, well, what style do you practice? And I always appreciate the different answers
Mm.
because we're all there at the same place. We're all there to compete. And sometimes I find that, like, when I ask that question, I also learn maybe a martial art I didn't know existed, or a
Yeah.
style,
Uh-huh.
perhaps. And I'm like, wait, what does that mean? Or what is that? And so I find it interesting. But yeah, the overlap, absolutely. Um, and also what someone's foundation is, or base, is always interesting. But really, it's just finding, like, if we have anything in common. And sounds like you and I do, which is great for conversation. But yeah, yeah.
I I remember when this was an early theory, and what's kind of fun about martial arts radio for me is that it's conversations with people that help me process my own thoughts. And then I'll talk to somebody who's really cool and smart, and they say something cool and smart, and it makes me go, oh, I gotta think about that some more. And then I think about it, and then it becomes part of the conversation the next time that subject comes up. And if we go back a ways, somebody brought up the idea that you could think of martial arts as a language or as languages, and that specific martial arts are a language. And what I found really cool about that idea was the notion of an accent. Because I grew up in karate, did a few flavors of karate that were all, the way they were presented was all similar enough. But then I started doing taekwondo. And my instructor wouldn't have referred to it this way, but he said, "You look like a karate guy doing taekwondo," which he understood because he was originally a karate guy. But he didn't have, if I remember correctly, as much time in karate before he made that transition. It was an accent. I'm working on learning Spanish. I'm always going to have an accent.
Right. Wow, that's a good way to
And
look at it.
you've done a number of martial arts. What did you start in?
So, American karate is the style of martial
Okay.
arts that I've been in for over 28 years.
Okay. So do you find that if you're doing something else, you are bringing in some concepts or some movement patterns that maybe the instructor's like adjust, right? Not adjust because you didn't know it, but adjust because your body wants to move in a certain way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even mentioning Bill Superfoot Wallace, we're both part of the Superfoot system, which I'm sure we'll talk about. I was just with him recently at a seminar, and he and I were talking. Even like my hook kick, which I'm part of the Superfoot system, and we can talk about systems versus
We could talk
styles.
about how Superfoot hates both of our hook kicks.
well, well, here's the thing. He actually liked my hook kick,
Okay, we don't have that in common then.
but I was throwing it a little too on the inside versus
Mm.
going around the guard.
Yeah.
And I realized that that is part of, again, the style versus the system, and how you're saying um, adjustments. Even like, for example, the step side kick. A lot of times I just slide up with my back foot. I don't even step.
Oh, I was raised too.
Exactly. And so he would we would talk about that and we would adjust. So, and right now I'm also recently started experimenting with Shotokan, which, by the way, my style of American karate is pretty much rooted in Shotokan. And I'm seeing a lot of similarities, but those adjustments you're talking about, it's definitely there. And I find that, how you said we're dealing with languages and accents. Yes, you refine it and you do what is best for you. But when you're in someone else's dojo and you're trying to learn their style, system, flavor, accent, language, it's appropriate to adjust and hear them out and try to do it their way. Doesn't mean you have to do it when you go home, but it is sort of a sign of respect.
For me, if I'm going to put on a white belt, which by the way is my favorite thing to do, I love standing in the back of the room wearing a white belt. No one's expecting anything of me. Even better if they don't know initially that I train. Like I'm not going to sandbag and be a jerk, but I want to learn with as much of an open mind as I can. If I've decided this it's usually a person more so than a school, but if this person has something that I want to learn, I want to I think I'm going to use the word submit to that educational process as completely as possible. And for me, that means for doing my best to forget that I know other things. Being as ignorant as possible. How do you punch? And I might even ask questions that seem dumb of people because if I say, "We'll make a fist," most people are going to get pretty close, right? Like what's the one thing a non-trained person might screw up? They tend to they might put their thumb in the fist. But outside of that, they get pretty darn close. But if I asked you, do you know any other ways to make a fist? You could probably come up with half a dozen right now. But the untrained person doesn't tend to come up with those nuance. We got some angle in the wrist, or maybe one knuckle's a little more pronounced than the other, or thumb stacked on top, like something like that. So I might ask a dumb question because I'm trying to force the old knowledge like to hide for a minute and be like, okay, how do you make a fist? And they look at me funny. I'm like, no, just I don't know anything. Tell me.
Yeah, that's actually, it's funny. Recently, when I took my first formal Shotokan class, and again, 28 and a half years of American karate, I just wanted to see what Shotokan was all about.
Huh?
And, quote unquote, find the roots, I suppose. And it was just myself and the instructor.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm just going to give you a formal first class. And I said, would you like me to wear a white belt? I would love to. And he actually said, he was like, no, 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 no. I understand why you're asking and I appreciate it, but I would like for you to wear your black belt. You've earned it. I said, Oh, okay. I brought a white belt in my bag, by the way, just in case.
You know how you
It
solve
just
that?
how's
I
that?
just don't even bring my black belt.
Ooh, good
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Good
I
point.
don't
Well,
even bring
I
my black belt.
admittedly I did wear it, but I had the okay and the white
Sure,
belt
sure.
on reserve. I put on an all white gi, and it was just you know everything you're saying, and I just opened up and just was a sponge. And I learned so much in the roots, in the technical aspects. Even, you mentioned different ways to punch. He was showing me a different way to rotate the wrist and when to rotate it, things like that before impact that I had not thought of. And I found that to be extremely interesting. That, and then he said, "Well, let's do what's your first kata?" And we call it H form number one. He goes, "Oh, we don't call it that. I know what you're talking about. Let's do it together." And we did our first foundational kata together. It's the same thing. I forgot what it's called there. I haven't taken enough classes yet. But
We
there you
Heian
go.
Shodan,
I think it was, yes.
probably,
And it's
which
the
is probably
H
where the
pattern.
H in H form comes from.
Exactly. And so it was just one of those like, oh, okay. I see the similarity. This is pretty
Yeah.
cool. The stances were different and whatnot, but it's all kind of the same. Fighting is all kind of the same when you get down to it, but it's not,
You
you
can only
know?
hit somebody so many ways,
Exactly.
right? And
Absolutely.
some of them make sense, some of them don't. So you probably don't do those.
Yeah.
And then some of what's left is usually a better choice than some of the others, and so we spend most of our time on those things.
Right.
And you know, the when you're talking about this first Shotokan class, what I'm hearing is he was answering questions I didn't even know to ask,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Hmm.
such a cool thing. Like, to the audience, you may not be able to tell. There's an Empire Strikes Back poster behind Derek. I've seen his bio. I'm gonna take a leap here and guess that if I say you have at least a nerdy aspect to yourself, you're not going to be offended,
Oh, no, not at all.
right?
Yeah.
So, when I think, and shout out to Jesse Encamp for coining the term martial arts nerd, but I think martial arts nerdism is a lot broader than people realize, because most of us, if we want to just get in there and knock it out, we're going to go do boxing. It's a pretty simple, not easy, simple curriculum. But if I enjoy a lot of detail and a lot of options and what we could call nerdy things, I probably end up something that has more punches and kicks and stances. And once we start talking about, here's a nerdy word, permutations of the ways we can put all those things together, it becomes a very big number very quickly. And that's fun for me. And you're smiling as I'm talking about this, so I know this is fun for you. And most of our audience, we've built a certain approach in the way we run these shows. It's most of you as well. You find value in the nerdy and the questions that we get to ask and answer from our training. So that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely 100% a karate nerd, a martial arts nerd, a movie nerd, but I always tell my wife, I'm like, but I'm not a nerd. And she's like, yeah, you are. I'm like, no, I'm not a nerd. I just have nerd tendencies. And she goes, yeah, yeah, yeah. Keep telling yourself that. But I've never felt like a nerd. I just definitely can geek out on
Yeah.
what I'm into. So I guess by definition, that makes me a nerd.
Different people have these different definitions for nerd and geek and dweeb and there was a great SNL sketch. It was called like Geek Dweeb or Spaz. This goes back a while. It's a good one. Where I don't know if we're going to link that in the show notes. It has nothing to do with martial arts, but if you haven't, I'm sure you can find that clip on YouTube somewhere. So 28 and change with American karate. but you don't look you look a little older than, let's say 30,
Oh, wow.
32.
You were making me feel very happy today. I am
I'm not
42
making
years old.
so because this leads in, the question is not how old are you? The question is, it I'm going to guess you're old enough that starting martial arts was your choice.
Oh, absolutely.
When I if I thought you were 32, 33 years old, I would say maybe your parents just put you in martial arts, like it wasn't a choice. But I'm pretty sure that that was a choice. It was something that was important to you, and so there's the question: why? Why did you want to start training?
Um, great question, and it's one that you would think that us martial artists get asked a lot, and we actually don't. So this is a good one.
People ask what and they ask when.
Yeah,
They
they never ask
why
when.
is my favorite question.
I love it. So um, I became enamored with the martial arts by way of the Karate Kid, which most people of our generation would say.
Yep.
Also, Bruce Lee, Bloodsport, you name it. All the 80s and 90s stuff, guilty as sin. However, I played sports and did that whole thing, team sports and whatnot. But I was fascinated with martial arts. There was one. I'm from a small town of like 6,000 people, and in East Texas, and there was one karate school, and I it was on like it was just like a movie. It was like in the downtown small town, so it's like a square. We call it the square, and it's in this old building. And I always wanted to go, but I never did. So busy with other sports and whatnot. And then one day in eighth grade, I'm 13 at the time, almost 14. In my earth science class, I'll never forget, a flyer, I think it was yellow, was on my desk for American karate. And I was like, what? It was going to be taught at the local college. I was like, what? This is, oh my goodness. I could not wait to get home. Gave it to my parents. I was like, I have to do this. Like, please take me to sign up. And
Mhm.
my dad was a little hesitant. He had dabbled with Shotokan and was just worried like his 13-year-old son was going to get his nose busted and, that kind of stuff. But my mom really knew, no, he's dead serious. I just knew, like, even before that, let me back up for the why, not the how, but the why. I did get, I was very small child. As a matter of fact, when I played baseball, they couldn't even find pants that fit me. That's how small I was. And so naturally, sometimes guys would jump me at the school bus or on the school bus or waiting for the bus or in the gym, or excuse me, not the gym, in PE class,
Hmm.
things like that. And this sounds really ridiculous to say, but I've never lost a fight. And I really hate saying that. It is factual, but I've never lost a fight. Sounds
It's great.
boastful. Well, so I knew I had it in me, and so I was getting in fights, and it, again, sounds so cliche. Well, I realized I was pretty good at it, even though I didn't want to fight, because who wants to get in fights all the time in school? And so I would go to the library, and there were books on karate, just like in the Karate Kid when Daniel LaRusso's learning out of a book before Miyagi starts teaching him. Again, it sounds so cliche, but this is my life. And so I would study, like really break down pre-internet. There was no way I could see anything about martial arts outside of movies or maybe ESPN had kickboxing on or whatnot,
Hmm.
or the USA Open, even K1 kickboxing, etc. So I would like really learn, as you said earlier, the nerd part of karate, like the techniques, and I was fascinated. So when I found that or was given that flyer in earth science class in eighth grade, I ran with it. And the first night of class, I was hooked. I've been hooked
Hmm.
ever since. It'll be 29 years in this coming January.
That's awesome.
And now at 42, it's just I still feel like that 13-year-old at times.
Hmm.
Um, but that's why there was just something burning inside for those 13 years that I had to explore, and I did, and I was hooked.
My, I'm gonna guess that despite being small, you were also good at other sports.
I was decent. So
Okay.
football, I was too small. I
Sure.
always joke I quit football and then got muscular at the time in high school. But when I was playing, I wasn't muscular. I was just 100 pounds of nothing. Wasn't that good. Wasn't that interested. Baseball was decent. Was fast, scrappy. Never hit a home run over the fence, but hit in the park home runs because I was fast. But I wasn't powerful enough to get it over the fence. Um, Track, cross country, decent. Everything was. I was even on the powerlifting team in high school at 126 pounds. Wasn't that strong though? I mean, let me take that back.
Okay.
I was strong, but it's not like I was lifting what the big guys were lifting. So I would say I was decent all around. But when it came to martial arts, that's where not only my mind was and my heart, but that's where my physical abilities really were shown.
And that's what I was guessing. So the reason I asked my question about you being good at other sports is I'm hearing a kid that was probably developed early in terms of physical awareness, proprioception, that sort of stuff. But because you weren't a just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it guy, right? That's not you. You needed to be more mentally engaged, creatively engaged, and conventional team sports only allow for so much of that, right? Like if you're on a team, you kind of got to do what the team needs. But if you're a martial artist, right? One of my favorite things said, and this is not my saying about martial arts, is generally speaking anyway, it is an individual sport done in a team setting.
Yeah,
And I
that's very
love
true.
that because it's I get to do my thing, but I'm doing my own thing next to you, and you're doing your own thing. And the harder and better you do your thing, the more I'm inspired to push myself. And we all get to do the individual thing, but benefit from the group dynamic. And I think it's anybody who's ever been in a bigger class with great energy and then contrast that with a smaller class with weaker energy, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's
Hmm.
so powerful.
That's true. And you mentioned the class size. So I love the big class. In the dojo, it's great. Uh, Competitions there, but I also love when there's a smaller class. And a lot of times I like to mix it up in my martial arts training when I'm going to classes. I know exactly what the big class is, what the small class is. And I get both of those in each week because they both have just certain elements to them. Um, if you're just in a large class or just in a small class, you're actually missing one side of the coin. So I like to mix it up when it comes to that.
You know, I want to acknowledge something that I'm sure a chunk of the audience might still, well, I'm sure a few of you are still hung up on this. And it's going back to when you said you went into earth science class and there was a yellow flyer on your desk. And I bet at least three-quarters of the school owners out there went, wait, how did, how did, how did your instructor get a flyer in the school on the desk? I want to know how to do that, right?
It's funny.
And if you know
My,
the answer, they're going to be thrilled.
oh, absolutely, sort of know the answer.
Okay.
So my school, I'll take it back, originates. It's called the original school is the American Society of Karate, founded by Mr. Bill Gray out of Houston, and from there, a lot of different schools. We call it ASK for short. ASK. Different schools developed. Different black belts of his went off and created their own area of Texas, pretty much all over Texas. So you had Austin Society of Karate, Hill Country Karate, Red Tiger Karate, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get to where I'm from, we had the East Texas American Society of Karate. Under my specific instructor, the late great Robert Lamont, he just passed away this past January.
I'm sorry.
And oh, thank you, great man, great man. And so, speaking of lineage, there's in my lineage, there's Bill Superfoot Wallace, Bill Gray, Robert Lamont, myself. And so, in the East Texas American Society of Karate, that obviously it's in the name, was the East Texas area, the location. And back then, that started in the early 90s. Mr. Gray started ASK in the 1970. So this is 1997 at this point. So ASK is 27 years old at the time. But the ETASK started in 92. So it's only 5 years old at the time. Okay. So their model was Parks and Rec and ISDs.
Mm.
And it worked. And hardly any, if any, brick and mortar.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of students, a lot of locations, low overhead.
Mm-hmm.
So I never, until recently, and I'm talking about 2025, never trained in a brick and mortar dojo in my 28 and a half years of American karate. It was always on a hardwood gymnasium floor or something of the sort. So when COVID hit, Mr. Lamont had to move out of the ISDs and really focus on Parks and Rec because the ISDs were just like, hey, we just can't risk.
I assume that means interschool or interschool, in school.
The independent school districts. Sorry,
independent school districts.
Basically just the school districts. And so Parks and Rec is where he had to really focus on. But he started in the school districts, then Parks and Rec. And at one time, he told me, I can't remember how many locations in East Texas Mr. Lamont had, but he had over 800 students total between all of the different locations. Now, of course, he had black belts teaching all those different locations. He taught 5 nights a week, and then he had other locations. So post-COVID, it dwindled, and unfortunately, he passed, and so we're all going to try to carry the torch. And I feel like that model is pretty amazing, clearly effective. But now I'm also starting to see some ASK people start their own brick and mortar dojos, including independent school districts and Parks and Rec. So I don't know. It's just kind of cool to see all of that. I myself plan on doing that same model. I would like to open a brick and mortar as a headquarters, get into the independent school districts, colleges, universities, Parks and Rec. And that way, again, less overhead. And the brick and mortar one I want to do, obviously there would be overhead, but I would own it as opposed to rent it. So wonderful business model. Speaking of the founder of ASK, Mr. Bill Gray, I hadn't seen him since I was probably in 20 something years. And I got to see him with Bill Superfoot Wallace a couple weeks ago.
Nice.
And it was a really nice reunion to be with the founder of my organization. It was just really delightful.
Yeah, that's got to be a fun time. And I'm going to guess that the two of those gentlemen go back a ways.
Best friends. Yeah, they go back 50 plus years.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, and if if you've spent time with Superfoot, his memory is a steel trap. That man can tell you everything. I mean, expect things that make sense but are ridiculous, like how each point went in a certain match in a tournament in 1971. But also the first time that he meets people, what they talked about, where the seminar was. I mean, he has such a brilliant mind for all this detail. That's part of
Absolutely.
why I love learning from him.
Absolutely. I asked him about Bill Gray and how, I was like, when did you guys meet? How, just fill me in, like hanging with you guys. I just need to know. I have questions, and they answered everything. They
Yeah.
remembered all of it in detail, like you're saying. It was just over ice cream, obviously, because Bill likes his ice cream. But yeah, so how to get into the independent school districts? Well, I can't give too much away, but our organization has done it all as far as universities, independent school
Mhm.
districts, you name it, parks and rec. It can be done, but to my understanding, it is difficult to do.
Yeah. I would imagine it has to do with strong relationships with people at the school that have seen the longevity and the success of a martial arts program. They understand the synergy that the school has with the martial arts program. And somebody in command, somebody with some authority, is willing to bend the rules a little bit.
Yeah, could
That's my
be.
guess.
Yeah,
So for the school owners out there, keep building relationships.
exactly.
It's that front office. It's the person that answers the phone or receives you when you walk in that office. They're the one that runs that place. It's not the principal.
That is very true.
Because if you call and and that person, I mean, I don't want to be, you know, sexist. It is generally a woman. Whomever answers that phone, if you want them to pass you on, they got to like you. Otherwise, I'm sorry, the principal's not available. Sure, I'll take a message. They pretend, they hang up, you're done.
That's true. Well, I should note that Mr. Lamont was also formerly a chemistry teacher, so he had that in at the time. So who
Hey,
knows? Who knows how he
relationship.
relation?
All
Well, there you
about
go.
business
Relationship.
is all about relationships.
Absolutely.
You so you've lost your did you say your primary instructor? The way you spoke about him makes me think he
Yes.
was your primary.
Yes.
Okay.
He was my real life Mr. Miyagi, is how I always say it. Yeah,
That's
he
a
he died in January of 2025.
Tell us a Miyagi sort of story about him. Let's
Oh,
understand who he is a little bit before we move on.
thank you for asking. He, man, I said he had a lot of students, and he did, and he had over 100 black belts
Hmm.
in his 30 something years of teaching. Big organization. And when he died, his widow, who's now our highest ranked black belt, not because she was married to him, but she earned it. She closed the school down, at least for now, as we mourn. And she said he was just larger than life. And she said, I just don't know if I can do it without it. It's not the same. So let's all take a break and we can reconvene, but I just can't do it. He was larger than life. And when she said that, I started thinking about larger than life. And he absolutely was. This man would speak to anyone, had more friends than I can even imagine, helped more people, and just and if he loved you, he told you he loved you. I can't
Hmm.
tell you how many times he and I said I love you to one another on the phone, in person. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a backstory, but I'll give you some specifics. I'm a teenager. I'm broke, single mom, and we have a karate camp over the weekend. Entry fee, food, gas, tent, you name it. And there was just no way
Hmm.
I could go. There just wasn't. And I even was had a little job, and I could I had no. I just didn't have the money or the means. Neither did my mom to help. Needless to say, without even asking or anything, he just funded my entire trip that weekend. I mean, gas, food, tent, waived all the fees. I didn't starve. He just took care of me. And when you multiply that times all the others that we don't know about, the things he did,
Right.
he didn't have to do that. But he didn't just lose money on me. He took care of me. And I don't want to say of me. He took care of a poor, broke, struggling teenage kid that really wanted to be there. He would do things like that. Sometimes you would find, oh man, if any of my ETASK guys are listening, they're going to tear up at this, but because they'll know what I'm talking about. Sometimes you'd find gear in your bag that you didn't pay for because he knew that maybe mom couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
Things like that. I mean, think about this as a business. They're all wanting to make money because they have to because it's a business. But like, think about all of the money, like doing things like that. He was losing money. And I just find that to be, I mean, that's just the type of guy he was. And I could go on and on and on and on and on, but I'll sum it up with one more recent one because that's when I was a teenager.
Sure.
A few years ago, I had, when COVID happened, I was living in Los Angeles and I was engaged at the time, and it didn't work out. A couple months before my wedding, COVID hits. I come back to Texas, and I'm married now, by the way, to the love of my life. So it's a happy ending.
So it did work out.
It totally worked out. Well, different woman.
Right. That's what I
So
mean. But it worked
yeah,
out.
it worked out in an even better way.
Yeah.
So Mr. Lamont calls me and he says, "Did you make it back to Texas okay?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You know it's her loss. You dodged a bullet, right? You know all of that." "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." He goes, "Great. Now quit crying, wipe your tears, put your gi on, and get to class, and I'll see you in 3 hours." I go, what? Wait. Now, mind you, I haven't been to class in a while. I lived in California for years. He said, "You heard me. And by the way, bring your gear." Man, I had only been home to Texas for a couple days, and I was totally heartbroken. I went to class. This man it was as if I had never left. And for the next 5 years, I just got to train with him every freaking day again, just like before I moved to California. And he just changed my entire life and gave me so much hope and love and instruction, just like the character Mr. Miyagi. And I don't know if you know this in looking me up or anything, but I'm a little closer to Mr. Miyagi, the character, than you might think. What's interesting, one aspect of my career is I'm a martial artist and now a new film professor, which is kind of an interesting route my life has taken, but I'm also a filmmaker.
Okay.
And, the Karate Kid, Mr. Miyagi, all of that, as I was telling you, inspired me to get into martial arts, but it also inspired me to get into movies. And I actually I don't know if you know this, but I directed a documentary on the director of the Karate Kid.
No.
He directed Karate Kid, Rocky. His name was John Abelson. And so I made a documentary called, he went by John G. Abelson, John G. Abelson, King of the Underdogs. And so I got to basically nerd out with all the Karate Kid, Cobra Kai guys, all the Rocky people, etc. And so John Abelson was also a mentor of mine, as Mr. Lamont was, but just in a different field, in filmmaking. And so I didn't get to meet Pat Morita, or because he passed away before I made the documentary. But it's just interesting how that movie or movies and now the series and all of that, it really just helped develop my interest, not only in martial arts, but in movies. And so there's that little tidbit.
I've said this before on the show quite a few times, and I love the Karate Kid. But what I've said is the Karate Kid is a really, to me, is a very interesting film because the sum is so much greater than its parts.
Yes.
If you break that film down, the writing's okay, the acting's okay, the stunt choreography's okay. There's nothing about it that when I watch it as no, not a film professor or a filmmaker, but as a casual fan of movies, there's nothing I watch in that and say, this part of this movie is exceptional. But the movie is exceptional. It
Yeah.
stood up so well. I mean, you watch it now and it's it's a story that's still relevant. The clothing's a little dated, but it's I don't know. It's do you nodded, so you don't hate me. Some people hate me for this
No,
take.
I understand. It's my favorite movie, but I understand what you mean. Because even I look at it like the movie is. I could go on and on and on, but we're here to talk martial arts, not movies. However, to me, the martial arts in the movie, and you might agree with this as a martial artist, it's kind of like, well, I see the basics that he's teaching him, and I know that it's based on actual traditional martial arts, and it's fine. There are some silly things like in part three where he does kata as he's fighting in a tournament and things. It's silly, but it's a movie. But I always tell people the Karate Kid is not a martial arts film to me. It's a love story between a boy and his surrogate dad, and that's what John Avildsen, the director, was setting out to make, and I
Yeah,
think achieved
that's a
that.
good
And
point.
so I think when we're all of us martial arts instructors trying to be Mr. Miyagi, what we're trying to be is the essence that he had, that character had
Mhm.
in the martial arts. Um, it's so beautiful, such a beautiful character. Actually, I know you got to interview Sensei Fumio Demura. I interviewed him for the documentary. Unfortunately, his piece didn't make the final cut. Nothing against Sensei. It just things had to be cut.
Yeah, yeah, I
But
understand.
a real life Mr. Miyagi.
He, I'm glad you brought up Demura because I was thinking about him because I can't think about Karate Kid without thinking of him because and I don't know if you've seen the real Miyagi,
Yeah,
the
yeah. I know the
documentary.
guys that made it.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool. Well, they're the reason I got to talk to him.
yeah.
They made that happen because we did an episode on him and I watched the documentary, referenced that and everything, and they said, you want to talk to him? And I was like, yeah. And I had his number in an hour and I was talking to him on the phone and we set it up. It was amazing. But to me, he is Miyagi. And
Hmm.
not the way the documentary is even titled, The Real Miyagi. He is not just the choreography, the stunt work that ended up happening with his team, but the spirit. The amount that Pat Morita pulled from Demura's personality. And then you look at how much that man, not just through that movie, but in other ways, changed martial arts in the world. I don't believe there is a person alive who has changed. He's not alive anymore. I can't say it that way. I I don't think there's anyone recently alive who changed martial arts more globally than Fumio Demura. And
Yeah,
we have to go back to, I believe, Bruce Lee to get anybody else.
yeah. No, I agree. And he was the man.
It was.
I got to interview him in his dojo, and oh, the memorabilia, the pictures of Bruce, and just it was just so. It's just everything you would want it to be, and
Yeah.
yeah, an amazing man. And you're right. I mean, the spirit of Miyagi. It was like again, neither of us. I don't think you ever got to meet Pat Morita, nor did I. And of course, he was an actor, so he wasn't Miyagi. But Fumio, like you said, was and like the guys that made the doc,
Yeah.
was Miyagi, the spirit of Miyagi. And it's interesting, those the traditional form of karate and the more modern styles and the way that some of I'm not I don't want to badmouth anybody or anything, but some of the way of modern sparring has evolved. Uh, it's like I would have loved to have seen him in a modern sparring match. That would have been terrifying for his opponent. Whether it would be no touch or light contact or full contact, he was just a really good martial artist.
I'm not going to say this man's name, but there's someone that I met through Fumio Demura, and we are connected on social media. And so over the last few years, I've gotten a little bit of kind of behind the scenes, some context stuff, and Demura was every bit who you wanted him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Just such a great man, and just wanted to pass on what he learned, and wanted people to train hard and get all the benefits, and he wanted martial arts, he wanted karate to keep going. And you can learn a lot about somebody by how the people around them are when they pass, and watching the people that were around him. This was not simply the loss of an instructor, and I think this will probably ring true for you. This was the loss of someone who so fundamentally helped them become who they were. It was almost like a foundation, like a pillar, and all of a sudden it's gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I've lost, not in the martial arts, but I've lost some people who kind of fit that.
Yeah.
And no one's ever
It,
filling those shoes.
no, it's
Just as
weird.
no one will ever fill your instructor's shoes, no matter who
Right.
no matter who you train with. I want to acknowledge some of the things that you said about your instructor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Sounds like an absolutely awesome guy. And we can take a look at some of those examples that you gave of where he was not receiving revenue for things that were happening. And there are a lot of martial arts school owners out there that are like that. But I believe, well, given enough time, that actually is a better business model. You're investing in people who love you, because it's not just about how do I make money teaching martial arts. It's how do I take this wonderful thing that I've been gifted with and share it with a new generation. And I don't mean generation age wise, I mean generation in terms of martial arts educational lineage. And when you are that way, when you are mission focused rather than financially focused, and you invest so much of yourself into it, I think I'm going to say most of the schools that persist for 20 plus years, I think they reach a point where you almost don't have to market anymore. You should, but everybody knows you. Everybody knows who you are, how you are, and the whole community recognizes the value, and they're saying, you know what, that you need to go train there. You need to do this. You need to go get these benefits. And it just, I don't want to say it gets easy, but I've seen this happen with so many schools. You reach a point where it just kind of chugs along. And that's what I'm hearing. Like I don't know this man. Didn't interview him. To my knowledge, was never even in the same room with him. But I feel like I do know him. I'm pretty sure, like, because what you're saying, I've talked to a lot of martial artists, and I'm glad. I'm not suggesting that who he was and what he did wasn't significant, because it absolutely was. But I want to acknowledge that there are quite a few out there, and some are even in the audience here, who approach their martial arts school in this way. Because when you put that set of gear in somebody's bag, you just want to see that student succeed. You don't want a few bucks to be a barrier because it's not about a few bucks. Obviously, you've got to keep the school open. Obviously, you've got to be there or they won't benefit. But it'll happen. And the last little bit I want to say, there are martial arts schools out there, and you know, people have been around for a little bit. No, I do some consulting with martial arts schools. This story that you're telling, this is exactly the reason why I tell school owners you need to charge probably a little bit more than you think you should, because it gives you the opportunity to help people out. If you're scraping by and you've got 3 students that could really benefit from X, Y, or Z, now you're dipping into your own pocket. Now you're losing money to help. That's a tough position to be in. But if you make a decent living, as someone who is skilled at a thing should, then you can go into, whether you think of it as your pocket or the school's pockets, and you can help people out and you can still be mission focused. And I think that provides a lot more long-term benefit to everyone involved.
I totally agree. And even towards the end of his life, I even knew that he wasn't charging some families and some, uh, you know, I guess I don't know what the word is, but families that couldn't afford it, he just stopped charging them. And so it just, things like that. It's just you're right. He was investing in the person. He was doing it right. Like he was teaching martial arts not for himself per se, but for others. And just an incredible man, incredible teacher. Um, and obviously, he's absolutely missed. And here's the interesting part: when he died, uh, let's see, I am now the age that he was when I met him. So he died when I was
Yeah.
41, and then I turned 42. So I think he was 41 when I met him. It's like, okay, all those years I had, when I start teaching my classes more formally, now that school's closed, there might be some kid one day
There's a
that
you out there
there's a
somewhere.
you. Exactly. Because in it, so it's definitely, definitely plan to pay it forward.
That's
Absolutely.
awesome. And
Yeah.
I think, again, I there's as many ways to run a martial arts school successfully as there are people. But you gotta love it. It's a job. It's a job. If you don't love this job, it's gonna ruin you. I've watched too many people love training. They open a school. They hate running a school, and then they stop training because it
Mm.
drained the life out of them, and it makes me sad. Makes me
Yeah.
truly sad.
And all we can do is just pass it on, like you were saying that Sensei Demura did. Just pass it on. And I like what you said about it just helps make you the person you are. Yeah, that's deep and right on target.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And the reason I can speak in this way is because I was blessed to have that sort of martial arts upbringing too.
Hmm.
So I get it. What other any other martial arts related or even adjacent films that you've worked on that the audience might be interested in?
I'm not sure about as far as martial arts. Everyone's like, when are you going to do a martial arts film? Because you would think that's like, and I do want to do one day, be it a documentary or a feature film where it's just mainly martial arts based. I do have ideas. I did do some documentaries, kind of still in that realm of more so in the Rocky world. I've done a few projects with Stallone in the Rocky world. One of them's called 40 Years of Rocky, The Birth of a Classic, that he narrates. Um, stuff like that. As far as martial arts, I would like to do something. Um, but I don't know that it kind of, I set out to be a filmmaker, and documentaries kind of fell into that. And so that's kind of more what I'm known for than my feature films. I do try to incorporate a little bit of martial arts in my films, in some way. Um, but no, yeah, I've been kind of blessed to be able to make these films, um, and it introduces you to a lot of professional fighters, or you know, uh, it just gives something to talk about. It's a nice conversation, you know. Um,
You know the documentary that I really want to exist in. We even started it as a project, and I very quickly said, "This is we can't allocate the resources on this. We're not there." Is something on Joe Louis,
yeah,
and my
yeah,
hope is that someone will do that and talk to Superfoot
yeah,
because from my understanding, because we've had quite a few people on the show who knew Joe Louis personally. In fact, one of my best friends, Dennis, it is his birthday today. He's one of a small group that has black belts from both Superfoot and Joe.
nice.
Um, but you get some stories about some of these people like Joe Louis that 99% of the world saw them one way, but the few people that they let behind the curtain got to see a whole other side.
Right.
There's a lot to that man.
Well, and I'm a big Joe Louis fan. I don't want to say my ideas because I don't want to give them away, obviously.
No, don't.
But I do have ideas for documentaries, at least, because I do both docs and features
Mm.
in that realm. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, but one of my ideas would involve a bit on Joe Louis. That's all I'll say. Nothing
If
official
you
yet.
do it, if any of my connections can be helpful, just say the word.
Oh, I would
I'll
love.
I'll I'll put you in touch with some people.
Yeah, absolutely. A huge Joe Louis fan.
Yeah.
Just oh man, Superfoot, Joe Louis, Benny Urquidez, Don Wilson, all the old school goats, pretty much.
Yeah.
I'm just a sucker for.
Yeah.
Thank
And
goodness
all
for
good people.
YouTube. Yeah, yeah.
All really good people.
I met Benny Urquidez one time by I didn't know I was going to meet him. Usually when you meet someone famous, you know you're going to meet them and
Yeah.
whatnot. I love telling this story. I was interviewing Judo Gene LaBelle for a documentary,
So
and
jealous. There
oh,
are only a few names you could drop that would make me jealous. That's one of them.
I could drop several, but I'm glad that you appreciate Judo Gene LaBelle. I'm interviewing him in his office, and we're talking. When we're done, like Mr. LaBelle loved to talk, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, you're not going to go interview him for an hour. You're going to interview him for an hour and stay for another 4 hours. And so when we were done with the interview, we were just talking and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, "Oh, there's Benny." And I turn and I look, and Benny the Jet Urquidez walks in, and Judo Gene LaBelle introduces me to Sensei Urquidez. I'm standing in between both of them, and my brain is just,
Like the
I did
most
not know.
dangerous place anyone's ever stood in history is between the two of those men.
You were so correct. You took the words right out of my mouth. I felt the most vulnerable I've ever felt in my life, and I didn't know he was coming.
Oh,
And
that's so
the
cool. Yeah.
nicest guy ever. Huge fan of him as well. And that's just one of those moments like you can't make that up.
No.
I'm just standing in between both of these guys. It was awesome. Just a cool experience.
Are the especially that movie about the director there, pardon me, the name dropped out of my brain.
Oh,
Can
John
people
G.
find that? Like,
Abelson.
say that again?
Oh, his name was John. The title is John G. Abelson, King of the Underdogs.
How do I watch that?
Um, it's out there streaming.
Okay. Okay.
All of my films are out there. Prime. Nothing's on Netflix. I've never done
Okay.
Netflix, but Prime, you name it, it's there.
Okay.
Um,
Do we I don't know that we have links. Do you have a website set up with all your films?
I used to.
Okay.
I could, yeah, I could send you
Then at
links and
least get us a
stuff.
list. Like
Yeah,
let's flesh out the show notes with that because I think people would be interested.
yeah.
You bring a certain um, quality to your conversation, and I'm going to guess that you bring that similar quality to the way you tell a story in film, whether documentary or whether feature. And when I find someone I like the way they tell their story, whether that's a certain writing style or vocal style or something, I want to see all the stuff that they got. So I'm
Oh, I
pretty
appreciate
sure I'm
that.
not the only one that wants that list.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely give you the list.
Awesome.
And I said I used to have a website with it all there, and then life happens. But no, they're all
Happens.
out there.
Oh, great.
We did. I've got King of the Underdogs, 40 Years of Rocky, Stallone, Frank, that is, about Frank Stallone, Sylvester's brother. That's streaming on Prime right now.
Hmm.
Um, I edited the making of Rocky versus Drago for
Mm.
Sly. It's a few years ago he did the Rocky 4 director's cut. Well, I edited the documentary of him making the director's cut.
Nice.
So just a bunch of fun stuff. I kind of got sucked up in the Rocky Stallone world, but I'm happy and it's awesome. He's awesome, and it's funny. Sometimes I would just annoy him and send him training videos. And one time I had a lake house and I was cutting uh, tree stumps or whatever branches up with my chainsaw, and I was tossing these logs to get them onto a fire pit. So to annoy Sly, I just had someone video me, and I was tossing them, and I was doing what Rocky was doing in Rocky Four when he was tossing the logs, but in Siberia. And so I was like, "Look familiar?" And he's like, something like, "You and I both know that's definitely difficult to do." I was like, "Yeah." And it's just stuff like that you geek out on. You're like, "Hey, look at me, Sly. I'm throwing logs like you did." Just stupid stuff.
He's he's so interesting. Like, um, I haven't watched the second season yet, but Tulsa King.
Yeah,
And you look at him as an actor now, and you go back to the beginning of his career, and you're like, how did this person got became? Not that he was ever a. Some people would say he was a bad actor. I never thought he was a bad actor, but you watch him in Tulsa King, and like, this man is putting on a masterclass. He's become an incredible actor.
yeah, yeah. I think definitely got pigeonholed through the years with Rambo and things like that. But no, he's a great actor, a great talent. Um, yeah, he's just a cool guy. All of those guys are
If he's writing
all
back to you, sending him videos like that, he's got to be a good guy. He's got a sense of humor. He has some self awareness that
the oh yeah,
some of what he's done has been so inspirational and iconic.
yeah. I mean, just so many stories
Hmm.
I could tell. But back to martial arts. Um, I'm just kidding for the audience out there. Um, yeah, it's weird because the martial arts, it all for me. Movies and martial arts are kind of they were kind of one thing growing
Hmm.
up, and I learned to kind of separate them, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I didn't want to get pigeonholed and
Right.
just do karate movies or documentaries, but now I want to.
That makes sense. I've had the chance to talk to a good number of folks who are martial artists involved in film,
Yeah,
and usually you can describe them as an actor who does martial arts or a martial artist who acts. We've only had a couple people on the show that really blur the line, where you
right.
you have to kind of make a choice. It's usually pretty obvious, and I've even posed it to the guests in that way. And they're like, "Oh, absolutely, I am a this or the other." Is there anyone, whichever direction of that coin you want to take it, that you would really like to work with?
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, absolutely. As
Let,
far
let,
as
let
like,
me phrase it differently because I bet it's a
yeah,
long list.
yeah.
If somebody watching has a magic wand and they can wish one person into you being able to work with them, who is that?
And you mean specifically in the martial arts movies world?
Yeah, whether that's someone who's known for acting or stunt work or even choreography.
Oh man, that's a good one. That's a good question. I'm glad you get to edit this because I get to think about it for 10 minutes. No, I'm
We'll
kidding.
probably leave this part in because the deliberation, I think, is an important part of the answer.
Yeah,
When when someone's not sure how to answer a question, it tells me that I've asked a good question, because either it's a difficult decision or you've never thought about the material in that way. And I think
right.
either one is valuable for us getting to know you.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. I'll answer it in a roundabout way. Um,
Spoken like a
so
martial arts instructor.
exactly. I almost had for my latest film. I almost had Dolph Lundgren cast. Actually, he was going to do it, and I say Dolph Lundgren because we were kind of going that route you're talking about. We wanted a martial arts actor, and of course, an icon. And so we almost had him as a villain. Um, so that was an almost. Could be again. Like if you ask me like who's an actor you want to work with, I'm going to say like, oh, Billy Bob Thornton, right? Or somebody like really really crazily talented as an actor. If you say who's a martial artist actor you want to work with, then there's like, oh, well then there's Dolph Lundgren and Michael J. White, that sort of thing. If you say who's a martial artist you want to work with, it's like, well, obviously Bill Wallace and people like that. So there's a wide variety, and you're right.
Mm.
It could be long answers. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't. It's more of like I have ideas. Some have been executed. Some will be executed. The lists are just too long. I categorize everything. I have a top five and a top three, and I just
That's spoken like anyone involved in film. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
There's just too many to choose from.
Right.
But yeah.
What martial arts movie or potentially series of movies deserves another sequel and you want to direct it?
Ooh, good one. Huh. Uh, okay. How cool would it be to see a modern The Last Dragon sequel? Not a reboot, but a sequel. Now, I know
How do we bridge to that?
a lot of the cast are gone, but Timac is
Yep.
still around.
He's still doing it. And he's talked about a sequel. He's flirted with it. And I'm honestly surprised it hasn't happened because nostalgia has been so big.
Yeah,
And I can't imagine the IP rights on that are super expensive.
right. Yeah, I would love to do that. I love that movie
There
because
was so
everything else
much
has
in the
been
first
done.
one to pull from. Yeah.
Yeah, can't do Karate Kid because it's done and done and done and done. Uh, you know, The Last Dragon, 100%. I would love to do that.
That's a, I didn't, I would have assumed you would have gone deeper on the action side, something Jackie Chan, Bruce Lee, Jet Li, Tony Jaa, somewhere in that world. But The Last Dragon, it would be great. Yeah.
It's just so fun.
You should go make that happen.
I should.
I hope you do.
Yeah,
Somebody out there has to have some way of helping Derek make that happen. So
that would be amazing.
do it. Do it. I don't know. Maybe Timok's watching. He's been on the show.
Nice.
Good guy. Super good guy.
Yeah. Haven't met him, but I hear great things. Just a
Yeah.
nice
Yeah.
guy.
Just, again, you don't have a lot of actors that I think truly understand the place that their role in iconic film has for people. I mean, we just dropped our episode with Simon Ree from Best of the
Hmm.
Best, and plenty of other things, but that's what people know him from. That just came out in the last few weeks, and he talked about that a little bit. This idea that you know he seemed surprised because there's a martial artist who became an actor. I'm just
Hmm.
doing martial arts. I'm just a guy. Not that that was how he worded it, but that was my impression. He saw himself in a very humble way, and yet, I mean, still, there's some playful controversy on this show about that film, but the reality is, it is held up as one of our audience's favorite martial arts films of all time.
Yeah. I was friends with Sally Kirkland, who played, I forgot her name in the movie.
Yeah,
And I remember one time, when you live in LA, you just know tons of people. And so I knew
sure.
Sally, and sweet, sweet lady. And she was like, "Can you send me a copy of that on DVD? I don't even have it." So I think I sent her a copy of Best of the Best.
Did you sign it?
No,
Because I,
no.
I would because who does that, right?
Right, right. I remember I met Eric Roberts once, and I was like, "Hey, friends with Sally Kirkland. She said to tell you hello." And I was like, it was kind of loud in there. We were at a film festival or something. I was like,
Yeah.
"Sorry, Mr. Roberts, did you hear me?" He goes, "Oh, I heard you. You tell her I said hi." And I was like, "Okay, there's my best of the best moment." Linking Sally Kirkland and Eric Roberts briefly.
There's it. The it's almost a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of best of the best.
Yeah,
We can
yeah.
play the game that way.
Well, it's a fun film. A lot of cheese, but it's fun. If you're a martial artist, you love it. Uh, who didn't grow up watching Best of the Best? It's
I
just
hadn't
fun.
seen it until a few years ago.
Really?
And that's one of the challenges. There are certain films that if you cannot place yourself in the mindset of that time period and be contemporary about it, it can be really challenging. That was my issue with The Princess Bride. I watched it
Oh,
when I was in my mid-20s, and
yeah,
I watched it again 10 years later. I didn't like it the first time. I watched it again 10 years later and worked really hard to pretend I was 12 years old,
yeah.
and it made all the difference.
That's true. Another good movie that I think you're right. I don't think I appreciated that one until much later.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting because movies again of a certain generation, pre-internet, pre-cell phone, all of that, all we had were the movies, magazines, books, and maybe ESPN was showing
Yep.
martial arts.
Yep.
I mean, that's all we had. And so a certain generation, when we know it's make believe, and we know that so and so might not be a professional fighter because now we're in the age of like legit. I'm not talking about Benny Urquidez and people like that. Legit, like the greatest. But some are just martial artists that act or actors that do martial arts. I'm talking about the real prize fighters. It is just a totally different dynamic now. So a lot of kids don't look up to, say, Jean Claude Van Damme like we did. They look up to, whomever the UFC champion is. So
Right.
things have changed, and there's nothing wrong with either. It's just, I feel like, uh, I'm not sure how old you are, but my generation, we saw that.
I'm 46. I've got just a couple years
46.
left.
Okay, so our generation, we saw both sides of that shift, and both sides are cool. I think.
Yep.
I mean, because we grew up going, who would win in a fight, Jean Claude Van Damme or Steven Seagal? And it's like, well,
Well,
yeah, that would never happen though, right? But
right.
these days, you can go, who's going to win in a fight between so and so UFC guy and so
Right.
UFC guy?
And there's a decent chance you'll get some information on that, right? Whether it's they fight directly or, they fought some people in common and you can kind of compare. You can, and I mean, in some ways that's fun, but in some ways it takes the fun out of it.
Right.
The nerdy debates to go back. And, kind of what I love about the way you talked about this transition is, and this almost brings us full circle in a sense, is that who was there at that transition point? Bill Superfoot Wallace doing commentary at UFC
Yes.
one, right?
Yes.
And I've had some conversations with him about the UFC and things that I'm not going to share here. But
Right.
maybe once we're done recording, I can tell you. This has been great, and I know if we don't intentionally end this, it will not end. I can tell that you and I both could go quite long on this, and I have another one that I have to go prep for. So uh, I thank you for your time. This has been great. When you send over that list, we'll get it into the show notes. And if there's anything else that you want to plug in there, social media. Do you do social media?
Yeah, I do. I'm on
Reluctantly, it sounds like,
Oh
or
yeah,
minimally.
Facebook,
Okay.
Instagram. DW Johnson 16 is my handle. I used to be really into it, but I just kind of calmed down. But I love when people, if I do a podcast or something, and they reach out to me. Please do. It'd be great. I will get back to you. And yeah, I'll send you the list. And I just appreciate you inviting me on and letting
Yeah,
me talk
this
about
has been a fun
stuff.
conversation. Maybe we need to find a way to have you on again and have more of a film centric conversation.
Would love to. Would love
We
to.
can we can talk
And
about putting that
just
together.
thank you. Thank you for letting me talk martial
Yeah.
arts and
Thanks for being
movies.
here. And I'm gonna have you close. I don't close. Actually, before I do, I haven't done a single intro or outro all day. Whoops. Whistlekick.com, whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. Thank you for your support. And so I'll throw it back to you to close us up. We've talked about a lot of different things today. We've been all over the map in a sense, but what do you want the audience to think about as this episode fades into something else that they're going to watch or listen to?
Well, I think that if you're listening to this, you're probably a martial artist or have an interest in martial arts. Let's just be clear on that. And I would want you to think about it's, you know, we're in this new rebirth of the martial arts. And it's almost like a martial arts renaissance. It's at your fingertips anywhere and everywhere. But there is nothing wrong with studying YouTube and listening to other fighters give pointers and things like that. But you have to go to the dojo or the mat or the ring and apply it.
Hmm.
And I feel like a lot of times the theory is almost outweighing the application because it's at everyone's fingertips on YouTube. Well, I watched so and so show me how to do that, so now I know how to do it. And I would want to remind martial artists that blood, sweat, and tears is the only proven way to really achieve success, but also keep learning and keep watching those videos, but just go and physically apply it.